And you're right, he doesn't have 4% unemployment, but Reverend Al, he does have 3% with black voters in this latest Quinnipiac poll. Of course, we've been hearing for some time from the Trump camp that they expect to get 15, maybe even 20% of the black vote. And of course, as we've been saying for some time, attacking Barack Obama every day, coming up with conspiracy theories, making things up, creating this nebulous Obama-gate conspiracy. You at times think that there must be a Democratic operative that is a spy inside the Trump campaign. You think there has to be a mole in there? Because the last thing that Donald Trump would want to do if he wanted to expand his base among the black vote would be to vilify Barack Obama every single day. The last thing he would want to do would be to have his administration figuring out how to cut Social Security and Medicare in the middle of a pandemic. But they're trying to figure out how to do that, how if people get benefits from this coronavirus, that it will actually, the money will be drained from their Social Security and Medicare accounts later in life. It's just none of this makes any political sense at all, which I guess tells us exactly why Donald Trump's political fortunes keep getting worse by the day as he gets more and more out of control with his wild conspiracy theories, his attacks on Barack Obama, his attacks on the state of Michigan, his attacks on the state of Nevada, his attacks on the very people he should be trying to draw closer to him.
It's a strange thing about black voters. They are very similar to other voters. You do for those that do for you and address your issues. When you look at the fact that even under the best economic circumstances of the last 3.5 years, blacks were still doubly unemployed, and the president never addressed that, never said here's a plan for that. When you look in the pandemic where it has gotten even worse, he had given some verbal statement. Oh, I'm concerned when it was raised at a press conference, only when he was questioned. I'm concerned about blacks are dying or being found positive with the virus at a higher rate than whites. That's the last we heard from him. No plan for that. When we raised that black-owned businesses and other minority businesses were not getting anywhere near what they should out of the stimulus package, no plan for that. So what would he think black voters are going to do? I'm surprised he's at 3%. And if that wasn't bad enough for him to attack Barack Obama because he's so obsessed that Barack is everything that he would have wanted to be in life, that he can't stand that a man who happens to also be black has hit every mark that he could not make and didn't have a rich father to finance it. It just drives him crazy.
Well, the Affordable Care Act, extremely popular with the American people. Barack Obama, popular with the American people. Donald Trump, not popular with the American people. Those attacks.
They're scared.
Those attacks, again, undermine everything that a politician is supposed to do. He should be trying to expand his base right now. And, Mika, he's not doing that. One other thing black voters see, they understand that this pandemic has hit them disproportionately.
Yeah.
Black Americans have paid a disproportionate price for this pandemic. It has been a nightmare in so many black communities across America, just like it has been for so many seniors of all races. And when they hear Donald Trump saying he would do nothing differently, when they hear Donald Trump saying, you look at the number of all those black people have died, all those white people have died, all those Hispanics have died, all those Asian Americans have died. You look at all the Americans who have died. We're going towards 100,000, ranked 131 out of 140 countries, according to Johns Hopkins. And he says it's a badge of honor. Those numbers, as Willie said earlier today, they hear that. And that has an impact on them. And that has an impact on the way they vote. Again, I'll say it again. I've been saying it every day. I don't understand his behavior, why it's getting more out of control by the day unless he has simply no control over himself, because everything he's doing is driving his poll numbers down.
Still ahead on Morning Joe, last month, President Trump denied reports that he yelled at his campaign manager. We'll see if that holds true today after the president sees the ad we're about to show you. We'll talk to one of the strategists behind it, Rick Wilson, straight ahead on Morning Joe.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.